A preliminary report says the crew of Ethiopian's airline Flight 302 that crashed last month complied with procedures. Protests in South Africa rocked Johannesburg's Alexandra Township. And the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo becomes increasingly severe. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. We begin our broadcast tonight with Ethiopian authorities releasing the first official report on the fatal crash of a Boeing 737 MAX 8 airplane that repeatedly nosedived before slamming to earth on March the 10th, killing all 157 people on board. Ethiopian Minister of Transport Dagmawit Moges says the initial findings of the investigation, based on information gathered during the probe, has revealed several facts. First, the aircraft held a valid certificate of airworthiness. Second, the crew had the proper license and qualifications to fly the passenger jet. In line with international rules on air accidents, the preliminary report did not attribute blame, nor did it give a detailed analysis of the flight, which is expected to take several months before a final report is due within 1 year. But Moges also added two more key facts about the crash in the news conference in the capital, Addis Ababa.
The takeoff roll appeared very normal. And the fourth one is the crew performed all the procedures repeatedly provided by the manufacturer, but was not able to control the aircraft.
Families of the 157 victims, regulators and travelers worldwide are waiting for clues to the accident after the new Boeing jet crashed minutes after takeoff. 737 MAX 8s have been grounded worldwide until Boeing convinces aviation regulators the issues have been resolved. Ugandan security forces are continuing their search Thursday for an American tourist and local driver who were abducted at gunpoint late Tuesday in a national park. Police have identified the American as 35-year-old Kimberly Sue-Enscott and her driver as Jean Paul. Police say at least 4 gunmen kidnapped Cut and Paul near a wilderness camp inside the Queen Elizabeth National Park, shown here in a promotional video from the group Wild Frontiers. Police say an elderly couple were also held up, but was not taken, alerted the park officials to the abduction. Ugandan authorities say the kidnappers, using the victim's mobile phone, demanded a ransom of $500,000 US. Ugandan officials say they have closed border crossings with Congo in an effort to keep the kidnappers from fleeing. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the U.S. does not pay ransom to terrorists because it may encourage them to seize more people. A 2-day international conference on genocide opened Thursday in Kigali ahead of the 25th Rwandan genocide anniversary on Sunday. Delegates from around the world are participating in the forum under the theme Preserving Memory, Championing Humanity. According to conference organizers, it aims to assess a post-genocide society. The first day of the forum focused on the perspectives of post-genocide generation. Delegates will discuss the realities of a generational shift in society that has experienced genocide, looking at the lessons, challenges, and threats. Another session will focus on the role of the state, the church, and the media in the propagation, polarization, and disintegration of the social fabric of Rwanda and how it led to the genocide. The forum will also discuss the necessity for justice in the aftermath of genocide in the context of nation building, reconciliation, and fighting impunity. VOA's Edward Rema is at the conference, and earlier he spoke to Freddie Mutanguha, Vice President of Ibuka, an association of genocide survivors.
Within 25 years, there's a huge progress in terms of preserving memory of genocide, which helped to really even to understand the root cause of genocide, but also to give dignity to the victims of genocide by having and mounting memorials, and also leading on some of the events that's really helped to bury in dignity the victims of genocide, but also to collect some testimonies and the documents and the artifacts of genocide that will really help to show how genocide was prepared and perpetrated, and in order to overcome the challenges of deniers around the world.
25 years on, how do you rate yourself? How do you see what you're doing in as far as providing that dignity to survivors is concerned?
I have to say that at the beginning was really a big challenge, because we didn't know where to start and who we should ask for help on something. So these years have been really a huge progress in the process of understanding where to start and how to do it. The challenge still there in terms of preserving memory of genocide. But at the same time, we still have challenge to know where, and some of the families do not know where their members of family are buried. We still need to keep persuading and convincing our neighbors and the people who knows where those people are buried to exhume their bodies and bury them in dignity. The journey is still long, of course, but there is a huge progress on that. But at the same time, I have to say that one of the challenges that we're trying to address at this point of time is trauma, because the trauma now for survivors, because of what they have seen, or what they have experienced, the time of genocide, most of the survivors right after genocide, they were traumatized. And up to now, having some people who've been trained on trauma healing, on counseling techniques, that have been really helping survivors to get out from that darkness, but at the same time to the fact that within these 25 years, survivors who managed to come together, and Ibuka, of course, helping to bring survivors together, sharing grief together, cry together, but also trying to find solutions together. That was very, very helpful.
Well, viewers, Rema also spoke with Rwandan youth born after the genocide to understand their personal connection to the genocide and their role as youth, and views on the 25th anniversary. Sabrina Nashimwe, 21 years old, is a broker at the Rwanda Stock Exchange.
I think when I remember, it was 2 years ago when my cousin's sister tried to get married. But because, if I can say that, the guy was from a Hutu family, so her mother opposed the relationship. She was saying, oh, he's a Tutsi, you can get married with him. But the good thing I liked about my cousin's sister is because she proved her mother that we are all in these, there's no Hutu, there's no Tutsi in it. The future is bright, if I can say. We are really developing so quickly. So I think the youth is really, as it is supported by our president, so it's really working so hard to rebuild our country.
Well, viewers, Edward Rema speaking to Freddie Mutanguha, Vice President of Ibuka, an association of Rwandan genocide survivors, and Sabrina Nishimwe, who was born after the genocide. Now, as the 25th anniversary of the Rwandan genocide approaches on Sunday, April the 7th, we're bringing you the moving stories of those who lived through one of the darkest periods of African and world history. In today's installment of our Survivor series, Ordinary Rwandans share the stories of loss, survival, and hope for their country. This is Immaculée Mukantabana's story.
I lost my brother together with his wife and 4 children. The entire family was wiped out, and it's not only his family. In our village, there are families that have been wiped out. Unfortunately, we do not even have any of their photos. That saddens me because we can end up forgetting them. Another thing that aggrieved me is seeing a woman carrying a baby at her back, killing another boy. I was on the run. I think I had reached Muhanga. The woman had an umbrella because genocide happened in a rainy season and used that umbrella to finish a young boy because others were beating him up too. It has been very difficult for me to forget it. It is hard to remember that the people you used to talk to, share meals together, and joke with have gone forever, have not even left behind one child, and you will never see them again. There is no way I can put this behind me. It's not easy. Then this woman, who was carrying a child on her back. I do not understand how a mother carrying a child on her back would kill another child. It is something that I felt was so contrary to life and humanity, and to the mercy that usually characterizes women. Now, life is better. I commute to work every day. Those who were children after genocide have now grown. Some of them have found jobs, and others are still looking for them. Life is better today. Today, we have passed the bad times because even God Himself has spared us, and we are alive today. If they were alive and I met them today, I think it would be easy for me to forgive them. For a country to get reconciled, people need assistance. Rwanda reached an extent where people must be retaught the necessity of peaceful coexistence. In a small country like this, it is necessary for people to be reconciled. We share everything in this country. My view of a reconciled nation is for everybody to feel that they are all citizens, brothers who share everything and work together.
Well, South African residents living in Johannesburg's Alexandra Township took to the streets on Wednesday, burning tires and throwing rocks in protest over a lack of services from the government. Serena Chowdhury reports.
Anger on the streets of Johannesburg. These protesters in Alexandra Township are demonstrating against the government ahead of next month's general election. They say they're fed up over their living conditions and want better services. On the list of gripes, not enough jobs. Protesters want President Cyril Ramaphosa to address the issues.
There are a lot of things happening here in Alexandra. Locals have no jobs. Instead, foreigners have jobs. We are not fighting anyone. We just want Ramaphosa to come here so we can speak to him. Even where I come from, it's the same situation. So Ramaphosa needs to come here so we can confront him.
We're fighting for our right.
The president and ruling African National Congress are under pressure to perform. More than 2 decades since the end of apartheid, millions of people still live in informal dwellings, and unemployment is sitting at more than 27%. Alexandra lies just meters away from the mansions and skyscrapers of Africa's richest suburb, Sandton, making the gaping inequality particularly acute ahead of the May 8 vote.
Well, that was Serena Chowdhury of Reuters reporting. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered, and want to ask you to join our conversation, on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter, VOA Vince McCory. Now, still ahead on Africa 54, the World Health Organization sounds the alarm on Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But first, a look at Thursday's headlines. Well, it's time now for a health reporter, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest details on the growing cholera worries in Mozambique. Lino.
That's right, Vincent. Mozambique and international aid agencies launched a cholera vaccination campaign Wednesday in the port city of Beira to treat nearly 1 million people affected by Cyclone Idai. Health officials are in a rush to stop the disease that has claimed the lives of at least 2 people and sickened more than 1,000. Mohamed Yusuf has more from Beira.
One by one, they came forward to get vaccinated.
I'm in the queue because I fear a disease called cholera, because it's a disease that kills within 24 hours. That's why I'm here to get the vaccination.
These are Mozambique's victims of Cyclone Idai, which hit the country with heavy winds and rains in mid-March. They survived the deadly storm, but flooded sewers produced an outbreak of cholera, a bacterial disease spread by dirty water.
What I know about cholera is that it's a deadly disease. If it spreads in society, it kills many people. I have to be here in line to prevent myself from getting cholera.
Health officials launched the vaccination campaign to try to halt the fast-growing number of cholera cases.
I want to be clean and healthy because cholera kills people.
Health workers set up cholera treatment centers to isolate those infected.
We will stop the ongoing of outbreak and we will save lives. We will save people be sick, and we believe that if they don't become sick, they will have a good health, you know. Yeah, so it will help them on that, and they will be able to continue to doing their reconstruction.
Cholera causes severe diarrhea, which can lead to dehydration and death if left untreated. For survivors of Cyclone Idai, yet another challenge to face before relief can turn to recovery. Mohamed Yusuf for VOA News, Beira, Mozambique.
Now, the World Health Organization says the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is spreading at its fastest rate yet, 8 months after it was first detected. Each of the past 2 weeks has registered a record number of new cases. Observers say this marks a sharp setback for efforts to respond to the second biggest outbreak ever, as militia violence and community resistance have impeded access to affected areas. Less than 3 weeks ago, the WHO said the outbreak of hemorrhagic fever was largely contained and could be stopped by September, noting that weekly case numbers had dropped 50% from earlier in the year to about 26. But now, WHO spokesman Christian Lindmeier says the number of cases has increased over the past few weeks.
So as of this week, we have a cumulative case count of 1,070 cases plus, with some 680 associated deaths. Now, unfortunately, we have seen in the recent 2 weeks increase of the average cases reported per week. So just this week, we have 73 cases reported for the week between 25 March and 31 March. The week before that, we had already 57 cases, which is both much higher than the approximate average of about 26 cases we've seen all over the weeks before. It's a mix of reasons why we think these cases have increased. Due to the volatile situation in North Kivu and in some of the areas, access is not always granted. And of course, the trust in the people is of high importance. Community outreach is so important to make sure that everybody knows how to seek help.
And Lindmeier says new approaches to community outreach are showing signs of progress, and some previously hostile local residents have recently agreed to grant health workers access. 2019 marks the 25th anniversary of the International Conference on Population and Development. World leaders gathered at the United Nations this week to discuss progress made since that initial landmark meeting. They also talked about the challenges and opportunities, as well as the most recent innovations in the fields of population and development. Joining me from New York City is Dr. Julita Onabonjo, the United Nations Population Fund Regional Director for Eastern and Southern Africa. Dr. Onabanjo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lenora. It's lovely to be on Africa 54.
It's great to have you. Listen, 25 years since the landmark conference in Cairo, leaders made some commitments. They had some goals that they were targeting. One of them was that countries must uphold each individual's right to make free and informed choices over their sexual and reproductive health. How are they doing with regards to meeting this goal and many other goals that they really set themselves to?
Yes, indeed, 25 years ago in Cairo, when 179 member states or countries made that commitment under what we call the Program of Action, or we call the Promise of Cairo, there has been progress. And so 25 years as we celebrate, and I've listened to your programs ahead, a number of countries, particularly on the continent, have that 25-year milestone in different ways. But I think what is very clear is that when it comes to the rights and choices, particularly of women and their reproductive rights, there has been progress. There has indeed been progress. Countries have taken on more policies that ensure access of women to reproductive health and to health services, as we saw even in humanitarian settings, as you are broadcasting from Mozambique and the horrific cyclone that hit them. But it is clear that, you know, as we sat this week in the Commission on Population and Development, member state after member state recognized that much has been done, but that much more still needs to be done. Indeed. And there is a call for urgency to actually achieve that promise that was set forward 25 years ago.
So you mentioned urgency. What urgent actions are needed at this point?
At this point, I mean, I think what is for sure is that the levels of inequality in the world, and particularly on the African continent, as we're getting out of poverty much more, the widening inequalities still exist. And so there is need to look for those who are most being left behind, and to understand what is driving them from not being able to break through on that poverty cycle. Because indeed, until we do that, we can't see the development that we want on the continent. So that's one area, particularly as it relates to women and young people. I think there's a real strong call for the fact that the continent is a very youthful continent, and young people really need to be able to work and become part of that economy that drives. So things that put them back, whether it's their health, whether it's education, and the types of skills they need to drive the economy, whether it's unemployment, and we saw that in the South Africa clip, where there is a lot of unemployment amongst young people, where there is also movement and conflict. So in that.
So Dr. Onabanjo,
a big commitment for that.
So we're gonna end very soon, but I wanted to get your take on why is the ICPD so significant to UNFPA?
Well, for UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund, this in fact frames our mission and our mandate of really trying to ensure that countries can understand their population dynamics and use that to actually look at their development policies. I think 25 years ago, what was key was that the world and UNFPA and the multilateral system understood that it wasn't just about numbers, but it was about human development. And therefore, putting people at the center of that would help us achieve what we're aiming for. And so for UNFPA, this is the custodian, this is the work that we do day in, day out to ensure that really every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth that a woman wants and every couple needs is really fulfilled. But most important for the African continent, that every young person in the continent has their full potential met. And that's why for us, we live and breathe the Cairo conference, and we will not stop until we can achieve all the promises that the Cairo conference set out for.
Dr. Onabanjo, so delighted to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and we really are happy to be here.
And that was Dr. Julita Onabanjo. She is the United Nations Population Fund Regional Director for Eastern and Southern Africa. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Vincent, back to you.
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore. I'll be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. And now here's what's trending. A women's empowerment organization in Cameroon recently hosted the first fashion show for differently abled people to promote acceptance and removal of barriers that people with disabilities face in the West African country. The event was held in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé, and featured 16 models living with disabilities, showcasing a variety of outfits by local designers. For those who participated in the Access 2019 show, this was an opportunity for inclusivity, and many say they hope that the visibility that comes with an event like this will change perceptions. About 2 million Cameroonians live with a disability, according to the World Health Organization. Well, next up, Cairo's social developments over the past century were uncovered through the prints and engravings of old sewer covers, now on display at an exhibition at the heart of the Egyptian capital. Artist Salma Nassar, a teaching assistant at the American University in Cairo, developed an archive of photographed sewer leads. Findings led her to introduce a new concept to Cairo's stark social divide, namely the privilege of having the service of sewage. The exhibit highlights the history of who was first granted the sewage service and for whom was the service first planned and operated, with priority given to the upper class. Well, and finally, advances in wearable technology were on display at the Wearable Technology Show in London. Guided Knowledge unveiled their technology aimed at improving the performance of professional golfers. It consists of an 18-sensor-based garment worn under a golfer's clothing, which monitors their swing motion as they play. The data collected is then paired with an app which analyzes performance. Elsewhere, Life Booster, another piece of wearable tech, is designed to be worn by workers and gather data to help companies pinpoint situations where they are at high risk of issues such as back pain. And that's what is trending, and that's our show for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a good night.